Hello everyone, this is James Man Extreme, and welcome to our next episode of QuikViews. Now before we get started, I'd like to point out that I'm going to play the intro for this game and leave it be for you all to enjoy, because quite frankly, it's too good for me to talk over or make any corny jokes with. For those of you who'd like to just get on with the review, I'd suggest you fast forward to this portion of the video to get started. I'll give you 5 seconds. Okay, time's up.
Sony Computer Entertainment America presents a Universal Interactive Studios production. A game created and developed by Naughty Dog. Crash Bandicoot War.
At long last, we finally come to the last game of the acclaimed PS1 Crash Bandicoot Trilogy, Crash Bandicoot Warped, often considered by many to be the best in the entire trilogy. Though I'll just be honest right now, in my opinion, it's my least favorite in the trilogy. Now just because I say that doesn't mean I don't like this game. Oh, no. On the contrary, I think this game definitely lives up to its reputation and ended the series of Crash platformers on the PS1 with a big bang. I just personally prefer the previous 2 games more, and I'll totally acknowledge that I'm in the minority when it comes to this subject. Compared to the Major League Crash 2 made after Crash 1, Crash 3 hasn't really changed that drastically compared to Crash 2. However, I will say this, it did introduce several new things that would continue on with future installments, such as new gimmicks, new abilities, and new enemies. It also fine-tunes a couple of flaws that were present in Crash 2 to make for an overall better experience, so yeah, I can understand why people consider this game the best of the bunch. So let's not delay any further. Let's dive headfirst into Crash's third adventure. This is Crash Bandicoot Warped! Sorry. The game starts off immediately after the good ending in Crash 2. Thanks to the power of Embryo's gem-powered laser beam, Cortex's space station is blown to bits. However, part of the station ends up crash landing on an ancient temple on Earth, freeing a mysterious entity cackling in the wind. This maniacal laughter is so powerful that it reaches near the home of Crash and his family, putting them at immediate unease.
Uka is free. No, it cannot be.
Wait, did Aku Aku just speak? Was he graced with a personality at last? Well, we'll have to look into that some other time, as here we see the evil entity, who we now know as Uka Uka, voiced by Clancy Brown, the exact same actor as Cortex, scolding who appears to be Dr. Cortex for being such a grade-A screw-up in the last 2 games. Apparently it's revealed through this discussion that Uka Uka is the one who ordered Cortex to do all the things he's done since the first game. Through telepathy or some shit like that, I don't know. It's never explained clearly, and it's not really a big deal in the Crash series to go that deep into logic, so let's move on. While Uka Uka is furious with Cortex's failures, he does allow him a third chance to redeem himself, seeing as how the space station fiasco set him free.
Make sure that you do it right.
After that cutscene, Aku Aku, now voiced by Mel Winkler, explains to our heroes who Uka Uka is. Apparently he's another powerful witch doctor who happens to be Aku Aku's younger twin. But because of his great thirst for wanton destruction, Aku Aku had to lock him up in a temple to keep the world from knowing his true power. Of course, now that he's free, the world is now at risk of seeing his true power and, well, Crash and his gang won't have this, so they rush out the door and into adventure. But poor Polar has to sit this adventure out because, well, he was just put in the game as a minor fan service to Crash 2. Oh. When you first begin the game, you're immediately set in this large hub called the Time Twister. This hub has a total of 5 sections, each with about 5 levels each, leaving for a total of 25 levels, much like Crash 2. Your main goal in each level is the exact same goal from Crash 2. Find a purple crystal and exit the level with it. I pretty much discussed in some detail about these plot MacGuffins, so if you aren't aware of them already, consult my previous QuikViews to get the full idea about them. Gems also make a return and act in pretty much the exact same way they did in the previous games. Smash all the crates in a level to get a clear gem, and finding colored gems pretty much involve finding alternate pathways, such as skull paths. Getting a colored gem unlocks other alternate pathways for more chances at gems. New to Crash 3 are these interesting specimens, called Time Relics. Earning them involves undergoing the game's Time Trial mode, which activates when you touch a floating yellow stopwatch. you pretty much have to beat the level in a specific time in order to earn a relic, which actually come in certain varieties. You've got sapphire relics and gold relics, and then there's also the elusive platinum relics, which are a pain to get. Though if you don't end up getting gold or platinum, don't worry, they're just there for bragging rights and nothing else. Any which way, all that matters is just earning that level's relic. Meeting the times required for most of the relics are next to impossible, so to make things a little easier on you, the game litters a bunch of special yellow crates to aid you. These yellow crates will freeze the timer when you break them, and how long the effect lasts depends on the number labeled on the crate. The lowest amount of time you can earn is 1 second, the highest you can earn is 3. However, it's possible to combo yellow crates to make the timer freeze for longer, so don't miss on that opportunity. In terms of crate variety, which is something I've surprisingly never brought up yet, most of them are the same kind you've had since the second game. You have your normal crates, your 1-up crates, TNT and Nitro crates, these question mark crates that chance crash at either an extra life or extra Wumpa Fruit, though usually it's extra Wumpa Fruit. These bounty crates that now only take 5 hits to break rather than 10 like in the last few games, and finally the Aku Aku crates. By the way, why is Aku Aku's nose colored gray in this game? New to this game is the roulette crate, which chances you at specific crates. However, you have to break it fast, or it'll turn into a steel crate, screwing you over a level's crate gem. If it isn't sort of obvious at this point, the theme of Crash 3 revolves around time travel. Uka Uka and Cortex's plans mostly center around traveling through time and gathering the crystals through multiple periods of history. However, Crash's gang has caught wind of this heinous plot and decide to use the Time Twister machine to their advantage. Crash 3 will see Crash going through medieval Camelot, the dinosaur ages, ancient Arabia, Egyptian times, and more. Of course, as we all know, time travel can be a dangerous thing, and it can put you at risk of death. And this game probably knows it better than previous entries in the series. Take it away, random death montage! Oh, I never get tired of these. Of course, what would a Crash game be like without his mortal enemies, huh? Let's see who's in line to put our Bandicoot friends out of their misery. First up, we have Tiny Tiger, who after his first humiliating defeat against Crash and the sudden disappearance of Embryo, became a homeless wreck, having to live with the hardships of the wild in order to survive. Somehow, though, Cortex came across poor Tiny and gave him a home and a position amongst his forces. Say, Cortex, what got you to perform such a selfless act?
Tiny was a good fellow. He hated everyone and everything, but a good heart nonetheless.
Aw, you kind-hearted son of a... But anyhow, you'll face Tiny inside a Roman Colosseum, as he tries to shove a trident down your brains and occasionally calls out fierce lions that can actually be defeated easily with your trusty spin attack. Next up, you'll go against then-series newcomer, Dingodile, whose main method of attack involves his devastating flamethrower. Is that really something you should be using in the Ice Ages? Oh well, he has a pretty kick-ass Australian accent. But not me, mine sucks.
No worries.
Afterwards, you'll be pitted against Entropy, the inventor of the Time Twister machine and my personal second favorite antagonist in the series. I wonder if having subjected myself to Crash Bandicoot 2 Entrance during my childhood has anything to do with it. Well, anyway, his attacks involve shooting very precise fireballs and floor beams that go in a set pattern. However, he also makes the odd choice of providing you a path to reach him so you can kick the crap out of him. Guess he's not as sophisticated as he makes himself out to be. After that, you'll go up against Engine, and you'll be fighting him in a spaceship on the moon! All you have to do is shoot at his blinking parts and use history. Be warned, though, that his battle has 2 parts. And finally, we have old Dr. Cortex to put up with. By himself, he's kind of a joke, because he's just got that lame laser tactic he had in the first game, and he throws out bombs which are actually sort of easy to dodge. What makes this boss battle challenging, though, is that while you're fighting Cortex, Aku Aku and Uka Uka will be at it against each other, and if you end up colliding in their brotherly warfare, then you can kiss your barbecued Bandicoot butt goodbye. So with all that out of the way, let's move on to the gameplay. Compared to Crash 2, Crash 3 hasn't changed much in format. You still run, jump, spin, slide, body slam, all that good stuff. However, what Crash 3 has going for it is that, like gasp, DualShock actually works now! No longer will Crash have to worry about the cruelties of D-pad-only controls. Now he can rely on the good old joystick to move him around. In fact, with this new DualShock support, Crash can now walk. How nice.
You can't wake me! You can't wake me! You can't wake me!
Abracadabra his ass, damn it!
In terms of new gimmicks, Crash also has a new animal buddy he can ride on called Baby T, a baby dinosaur that runs and jumps. And that's about it. Granted, he is sort of a force of nature, but his addition into the series is severely underwhelming. You only get to ride him once off the main path, his abilities are severely limited, and you don't even get to take him along for the entire level, which just flat out sucks. Also, did the developers not realize that there's already a character that looks and works pretty much identical to him? No, anyway you slice it, he'll always look cuter than that abomination in the Mario Brothers movie. Needless to say, this carnivorous tyke should have been left on the drawing board. Or at least make him playable in all the other Dinosaur Age levels. I mean, for God's sakes, you put him on the box art. Make him a little more relevant, will ya? Thankfully though, that's one of the only major flaws that holds the game back. And this new edition more than makes up for it. After you defeat bosses, you'll be rewarded these panels that grant you special abilities. These include a more powerful body slam, a double jump, a longer lasting spin attack, a game-breaking bazooka, and finally the ability to run faster. These power-ups will help make the game a bit easier for those who were having a bit of trouble before getting these power-ups, and these tend to be necessary for future levels. In fact, with the speed shoes, you'll pretty much tear through most of the time trial levels in a cinch! Now with the power-ups out of the way, let's get down to the other major addition in the game. Just because Crash's name is in the title doesn't mean he's getting all the action to himself. For the first time in the series, you'll be able to take control of Crash's younger sister, Coco. She doesn't really get to partake in any of the platforming levels that her brother goes through. Instead, she'll be taking on other kinds of challenges. For example, she'll occasionally be hitching a ride on this tiger cub named Pura, in a similar vein to Polar from Crash 2. However, Pura probably controls the best compared to Polar, and especially the boar from Crash 1. His turning and air traction are at the same level as Polar, but unlike Polar, he is able to dash for as long as you hold down the circle button. And would you look at that? Coco's actually being mighty kind to the little cub. Aww. Take some notes, Crash. The next gimmick Coco has exclusive rights to are the jet ski levels. Basically, you drive a jet ski all the way from point A to point B, with an arrow on the top screen pointing your way. And just when I thought the Crash games couldn't get any more linear. However, you still have to watch out for incoming cannonballs, bombs, seagulls, and pirates. Coco is also able to hop on a fighter plane to take out other fighter planes and blimps. In fact, the boss fight with Engine has you taking control of Coco on a spaceship with similar controls. However, unlike the jet ski and Pura levels, Coco doesn't have complete dominance over these levels. At least one of them has you taking control of Crash instead. Why exactly Crash gets rights to these levels when Coco has been tackling the last few is beyond me. Speaking of which, there are a few other new gimmicks in the game that Crash gets to keep to himself. One of them are the underwater levels, where he dons scuba gear and has to keep clear of bombs, pufferfish, eels, and sharks. Occasionally you'll come across these neat little water mechs which help you move faster and shoot torpedoes. These are mandatory if you want to earn all the clear gems in the game, as some crates are trapped under red coral, which can only be blown away by a torpedo. And the last major gimmick of the game comes in the form of a racing game. Crash dons some sweet biker gear and drives a motorcycle, with which he needs to beat these butt munchers to the finish line in order to earn another crystal. The set piece itself is fun, but its controls kinda hinder the experience. Crash's motorcycle has pretty lousy turning, forcing you to occasionally let go of the acceleration button just to make some very difficult turns. When he goes on speed boosters, turning is almost non-existent, and he can only regain total control if you let go of the acceleration button and press it again to go back to normal controls. There's little to no room to screw up in these levels either, because your opponents are actually pretty legit threats that will make you lose your chance at the crystal if you're not careful. Hate to break it to you, motorcycle old chum, but CTR you ain't. There's not much else I can say about this game except for this. Just like in Crash 1 and 2, Crash 3's good ending only comes when collecting all the gems. In this game, you'll also have to unlock a secret hub room in order to get them all, and it's only available once you beat the game and have at least 5 relics in your inventory. You'll have access to only one level when it's available, and the rest can only be opened if you earn more time relics. This game expects you to earn more or less everything if you want the real conclusion, so if you're up to the challenge, have at it. Well, that's pretty much all I had to say about the game, let alone the entire Crash Trilogy itself. Out of all the games, this one's probably held up the most. It controls the best thanks to its implementation of DualShock controls, it has some of the more memorable tracks in the entire franchise, especially with the main theme which has been carried over to future installments as well. The power-up system helps make this game the most accessible of the trilogy, and what the developers have done with the gimmick of time travel is in most ways very pleasing to the eyes. My only major gripes with this game mainly consist of the lousy motorcycle controls and the overall uselessness of the baby T-Rex. I'm not a huge fan of the underwater levels either, but that's just my opinion on the matter. I don't find their inclusion really all that offensive. The game holds some of the most memorable characters the franchise has ever seen, especially the newcomers, who would make common appearances in future installments in the series. Unfortunately, after Naughty Dog left the series after CTR, the Crash games would never hit the same peak of awesomeness the trilogy provided. The Wrath of Cortex was a decent follow-up, but many argued it was far too similar to Warp. The GBA side-scrollers were good for the time, but were criticized for similar problems Wrath of Cortex had. In fact, nowadays they're considered obsolete now that the PS1 Trilogy can be played on a handheld. Crash Twinsanity, my personal favorite in the entire franchise, was really damn close to reaching the levels of awesome the trilogy had, but it sadly couldn't quite make it up there due to a really tight development deadline. And the Titans games, well, I like them, but I'm not too happy with how brawler happy they are, especially the first game. Oh, and I'd like to ask a simple question to developers of these games. What was the deal with getting rid of Crash's gloves? But I digress. Crash 3 is among the best. I still prefer the other two games more, but I can't deny how much of an impact the game made on the franchise. So my final sum up for the game is... oh, screw it. The entire Crash trilogy gets an 8 out of 10. These are some high-class platformers, and were one of the strong points during the PS1's life cycle. If you own a PS3 or PSP, a PSN account, and have a thirst for a good 3D platformers, do yourself a favor and get these games. They're absolute classics. So much so that I'm sure most of you already have the games by now. But now that I've completed the Crash Bandicoot Trilogy, I must wonder what I should do next. Maybe I could do Gex Enter the Gecko? Or maybe I could do Croc, Legend of the Gobos? Or maybe... I'd rather not. Hold on, let me explain why. While I'm a huge nut for the PS1 Crash games, the Spyro games don't really have that same impact for me. With the exception of maybe the first game, the Spyro trilogy comes off as somewhat lame. I found the voice acting to be really weak, the soundtrack for each one is almost completely forgettable, and the gameplay itself is... alright, but nothing special. The most I can give the games credit for are its visual aesthetics and characters, which is to be expected seeing how the guy who did the artwork for Crash also did the artwork for Spyro. But otherwise, I'm not too huge with the classic Spyro games in general, with the exception of A Hero's Tale. That game is awesome, even if it's a bit on the easy side. I also have a small likeness for the Legend of Spyro games, but much like Titans, I really don't care about how brawler happy it is. I haven't really touched the Skylander games, though. All I will say about it is... come on, guys, Spyro doesn't look that bad. I mean, I drew him at one time using the Skylander design as reference, and look at him, he looks so adorable. Oh, and have some sparks to go with it. Now, I'm not going to rule out the possibility of a future episode featuring the classic Spyro games. Maybe someday I'll get around to talking about them. I just feel there's better games to talk about right now, so perhaps some other time. No hard feelings, Spyro fans. This has been QuikViews, and I'm Captain Reginald / James Man Extreme, and I hope to see you all in the next episode of QuikViews. Take care.